Morning. Summer might be around the corner, but parents are already thinking about where they'll send their children when the next school year starts.
Perhaps you're considering a charter school. Newly released data shows that some in the Valley are facing some serious financial trouble ahead of next year. Teen 12's Jen Wall digs into what that means for your children. Good morning, Jen.
Yeah, good morning, Emma and Paul. So about 40 Arizona charter schools are red flagged by an independent audit on the Arizona State Charter School Board website. Now, charters that struggle may ask parents to help pitch in financially. Teacher salaries may not be as competitive. And then, of course, the most devastating consequence, a school closure right in the middle of the year. During the 2016-2017 school year, Phoenix's Starshine Academy closed their doors for money woes. Goodyear's Discovery Cremos Academy shut down too. The owner accused of pocketing taxpayer dollars for personal use.
Any of those indicators is concerning.
Jim Hall with Arizonans for Charter School Accountability says parents need to pay attention to their school's finances.
I think parents really need to look up their school and see how healthy they were last year.
All of the information is online, but it can be extremely difficult to dig through the website and make sense of the information.
They should look at that information and see if their school is in difficulty, and then approach the administration at the school to get more answers about why exactly that is happening.
So how many charter schools in Arizona are in trouble? When we checked the website, about 40 of the state's nearly 550 charter schools are marked as going concern, and dozens more failed to meet 3 of the 4 financial measures, which means there's doubt in the school's financial stability.
I think parents have to look at it and make sure that if they are failing 3 or 4, they really look closely at whether or not they want to send their kids to that school next year.
And Hall adds parents have to take the financial information with a grain of salt.
Things vary from year to year, and a school could have a bad year one year, but be okay, be okay now.
An added layer of security moving forward, the passing of HB 2663, which will give the charter board the power to step in and close struggling charter schools.
The new legislation, I think, is going to really help deal with some of those schools before they get too far along and before they have to close during the school year.
So if you're wondering how your charter school is performing, you can go online and find all of that information. We'll put a link to that on our website, 12news.com. Now, when we talked with the charter board over email, we asked them why their number was slightly different than our 40 schools that were red flagged there by that independent audit. Well, they told us they found 26 because they are looking at contracts. And so some of those schools are lumped into one contract where that's why we found the larger number of 40. For now, we're live in Phoenix. Jen Wall, 12 Today.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you know what? I've heard a lot of people there's a charter school that pops up everywhere. I mean, they're all over the East Valley, Jen. I'm sure you see them driving around, and they do seem like good options, but hey, it's good to do some research too.